Start this particular Blue Stool, I want to just take a second to thank Chuck Bashaw and Linda Goodrum, who are some of the sort of pilots of this ship. They help organize this every year. Blue Stool is pretty important. I know that you're running between classes and that we're all busy pursuing our careers, pursuing our degrees, but remember, it is a rarity to get up here and say whatever you want in terms of the global situation. You could do a Blue Stool and talk about just about anything you want, and it's okay. That is a privilege and a huge responsibility that we should all support. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Thank you. And thanks to Linda and Chuck, as always. And thanks to Nathan, our videographer. Give it up for Nathan, who literally was responding to texts like 25 minutes ago to do this. And look at this. So, why your conversations about AI bore me in 10 parts. 1, during the pandemic, there was a comedian that got on stage and was talking about mask wearing and the way in which some people would wear masks and others wouldn't. And this comedian then said, you don't want to wear a mask? Fine. Go home and visit your grandparents. There's too many people in the world anyway. See if I care. That's a pretty dark vision. However, I kind of agree with the ethos behind it. So our first venture into AI territory is, you want to use ChatGPT to cheat on your paper? Fine. Stay dumb. See if I care. It doesn't matter to me. If you don't want to take the time to struggle with putting your thoughts into words, to struggle with putting your vision into some sort of visual schematic, to putting your feelings into some sort of audio experience, go right ahead. That's less competition for those of us who are trying to publish things in the world. I'm fine with it. 2, synthesizing one's thoughts, ordering a chaotic world in images, sentences, or sound is nothing less than the reckoning with the meaning of our own lives. Transmuting the chaos of our world into narrative is an engagement with why we live and breathe and read and think. It's to make sense of it all. 3, Nietzsche was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about some things. One of the things Nietzsche was right about is that to stare into the abyss is no easy thing. There is a moment of growth that has happened to all of you when you sit down to write an email to a dean, to write a paper for a professor, to write anything for anyone. The cursor blinks, the page is blank, and you have a moment where you're staring into the abyss. If we do not push through that moment and work hard to come up with the best words we can, we are short-selling ourselves. We're giving up on that moment of work and growth. If we abdicate our responsibility to discover who we are in those moments, we lose something. We choose convenience and efficiency over courage. We mincingly sidestep the opportunity for sovereignty of self. 4, I know what some of you are thinking, but Eric, it helps some people academically. Does anybody ever watch Oprah? You know you do. Oprah once had the great Maya Angelou on her show. Maya Angelou, of course, author of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And they were talking about reading and writing and being a reader and being a writer. And a woman stood up in the audience and said to Maya Angelou, I really want to read your books, but they're hard. I sit down to read and I get through a sentence and I kind of get distracted. I get through half a page and realize I haven't really been paying attention and I lost track of what you were saying. I get through a chapter and I realize I don't know who any of the characters are and it's very confusing. What do I do? And Maya Angelou looked at that person and said, dear, that's called reading. And it is. It's supposed to be hard. Writing is supposed to be hard, otherwise we would all be Maya Angelou, and we are not. 5, self-actualization is quotidian. There's no silver bullet. You're not going to get good all of a sudden. None of us are going to wake up one morning and be like, I am the fullest version of myself today. That's never going to happen. It happens in moments. And some of the most important moments are when we have to reckon with our experience, when we have to reckon with what's going on in the world, and we have to create narratives that represent it, that explain our feelings about those things. As the great Annie Dillard once wrote, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. What we do with this hour and that one is what we are doing. So every time we release ourselves from the responsibility of the hard work that goes into defining our experience, we've lost a little bit of that. 6, if there is a single word in the English language that makes me want to barf, it's optimization. 7, I am a card-carrying Gen Xer, the generation that weaponized apathy. So I would like to say right now publicly, at the risk of my job and losing friends, I don't care about your AI-generated art. I don't care about your AI-generated music, and I don't care about your AI-generated stories. I just don't care. I care about you. I want to know what you think. I don't want to know what an algorithm thinks you think. I want to know about you. 8, no names will be mentioned here, but I was attending a meeting here at Champlain, and a very lovely, smart person got in front of us for this meeting and said, here is a PowerPoint, and they mentioned that part of the PowerPoint was designed by AI. I then happened to note, I get a little distracted, someone on the other side of the meeting who got up and walked out. And I say bravo. Because here's the thing. I didn't get out of bed this morning, walk 2 dogs, make my son breakfast. By the way, he's 16 on the swim team. That's like a full-time job in and of itself. Kiss my wife, tell her I love her, drive through traffic, deal with the people. Have you been on the 2nd floor of Aiken? It takes a half hour just to get to my office because of people like Mike Kelly. I battled through all that. I went to a meeting, and now you're going to give me some algorithmic statement that you pulled out of AI? I went through all that so I can get that instead of you, instead of your ideas? I say walk out. I love the Matrix movies. 9. I love the Matrix movies. I think they're incredible. But there's one part that I hate. It's when Neo begins to gain his powers in the first one. And he has that little portal on the back of his head. And they start jacking in the cable, and he starts learning how to fight. And there's a very memorable scene where they pull it out, and he goes, whoa, I just learned jujitsu. Do you remember that? Compare that scene to the classic 80s film Karate Kid. What does Daniel-san have to do to get good at fighting? Wax on, wax off. And it takes up like a good third of the movie. And it's very boring. There's no cool fight scenes. Nothing's really happening. He's literally waxing Mr. Miyagi's car, fixing his fence, and you're like, this movie sucks. Until the end, when Daniel-san rocks. Your arguments in opposition to what I'm saying, I kind of already know what they are. They are predictable and they are familiar. They are the same arguments that are used to defend a neoliberal global agenda that oppresses people all over the world. They are the same types of arguments, switch out some verbs and nouns, that defend the rapacious consumption of resources around the world that have heated up our planet, and pretty soon we're all going to look like Deadpool if we don't stop. Because it's progress. In the name of progress, in the name of not being left behind, I must engage in these things. I know what you're saying. Also, you're saying, Eric, of course you can say that. You're this tall, middle-class, educated, white guy. Of course you can say, I've been kicked out of some of the finest schools on the East Coast. Of course I can say I don't need AI. But let me tell you a brief story, and then I'll wrap it up. I spend some summers working with new Americans, folks who have just come here, and I help their kids kind of get up to speed in school. And I was working with a group of middle schoolers, and I was working with a young girl from Afghanistan. Her name was Zala. And Zala spoke both Pashtun, Persian, and a little bit of Arabic, and was learning English. So she was quadlingual and already smarter than me at the age of 12. She had to write a piece for this program and really struggled through it. And we worked and worked and worked on this piece of writing. I said, let's make something for you, Zala, that's really near and dear to your heart. And Zala said, I want to write about food and how important it is in our family. And so we wrote about bolani, which is an Afghan dish of like fried bread with yogurt and potatoes and spices. It's delicious. We made some. It was amazing. What Zala wrote, and this is the exact kind of person that we'd say like, oh, AI could help this person. But here's what Zala wrote without AI at the age of 12 in her 4th language. She was talking about making bolani, how her mom takes control, how she and her sister chop the onions, and how her dad fries the bread. And this is a sentence that Zala wrote. When we make food, we become a family. Become. And so Zala and I talked about the meaning of becoming, of what it means to become. And when I explained it to her, she said, that's definitely the word I want to use. That was a non-AI experience. That was rich and incredible. So, if you've kind of zoned out the entire time, I understand you have class in exactly 1 minute. So let me leave you with this. Let me leave you with this. Sometimes efficiency, sometimes convenience is a bad thing. Sometimes the inconvenient and the inefficient are where you become, in the words of Rob Zombie, more human than human. Always take the long way instead of the short. That way, you can figure out where you're going. That was part 10. Have a great class. Goodbye.